Hello.
I'm hoping this is all
Working. I've migrated OBS to a brand new machine, so hopefully you can see me, hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully you can see my browser screen. I see, well, I did have one person in chat, but now I don't. So I'm just going to kick on, and we're just going to sort of go through some of the live development stuff that I wanted to do in my app, the SN app card game.
thingy. Okay, cool. So,
All right, so what I've got open here is I've got my PDI with my SN app application installed. So if I go to my applications, all applications is fine. Hopefully it will run or not.
it's reloading, but
Anyway, so I have it loaded into Studio here. So for those of you who are interested in this project, it's all uploaded to my GitHub repository, so you can grab it from Maligna is my username on GitHub. So if you do a quick search on Maligna, you'll find the SN app. I think it's called Marvel Snap on there, but we don't refer to it as Marvel anymore because there's no Marvel left. It's all just Snap SN app as a project. And as you can see here, I've got all of my files in the studio. So a bunch of things that we've covered previously. So my table structure for everything that happens. I've got my various forms in, my forms for just having forms, having records in a table. We've got my now experience things, so all my UI builder stuff, because a lot of it is UI builder. There's some various access controls,
properties I haven't really used.
and a couple of nav items that I've put in place, and then a heap of flows, lots of card activity flows you can see there. I've tried to prefix everything based on like what the purpose of the flow is. There's things that happen during the start of the game. There's things that happen during the match, card activities. There's subflows under play, yada, yada, yada. So there's lots and lots of things. There's even an old integration that I used to pull in cards that is now sort of defunct. So there's a couple of integration things there. And then I've got a few actions that I've had to create in Flow as well. So my generate random card number and update CSV of used positions. That's the card shuffling randomizer because I couldn't find a randomizer in Flow Designer. Get card image file was part of my integration. Retrieve Marvel cards was part of my integration as well. Shuffle JSON array of ID objects to create CSV. Okay, so these are two actions that were basically for me to be able to do my shuffling actions.
Cool. Okay.
So like, I think I might just sort of take you through how the app plays or how it works currently, just so you can get a feel for what I've done. So SN app. So we've got the SN app game menu. We've got a landing portal. We've got a debug menu, which I use to like generate games and things at the moment. And that'll probably do us, I think. So the landing portal and the debug menu. So what I might do is I might just fire up the landing portal. So this is the initial UI that I have right now.
It is a service portal.
Oh, I have to enroll in MFA because I've upgraded this to Yokohama. I will ignore that for now, but no doubt that's going to cause me some dramas later on when I have to figure out MFA. So I'll close those off. So I've kind of got, like, in my portal is very, very basic. Welcome to SN app, start a game, and deck builder.
Which is
pretty simplistic there. So what I might do is I might go into deck builder and I'll just double check. Yeah, okay. So the first thing I probably need to do is need to fix this prefix. So what I will do is I'll go back in here. I think it's control, and I will go.
I can't remember. I think
It's widget instance options because it's a
button. I'll just take this guy out. I think this is the right prefix.
So I've renamed my portal from Marvel SN app to just SN app. Oh, hey John, welcome. So I'm going to save that guy.
Fix this little problem
that I have.
refresh that. Okay, cool.
So it's taken us from
Portal into
this debug menu, which is UI builder. So very filthy. Like I should probably clean this up. This was just early debugging. How do I test my game to make it work? So there's a few sort of things that I need in order for to generate a game. So the first thing I need to do is I need to select a player. So let's be Chuck Tomasi. When I select the player, I can see all of the decks that Chuck is the player of. So it's opened up another list. It's refreshed that list based on the selected
user, selected player. So
it's put that into a flow variable somewhere. Sorry, a UI builder variable somewhere, and then it's used that UI builder to refresh this lookup. So I'm going to select Chuck's deck. So player one is now player one, and the deck selected is that deck there. Let's do the same here for player two. So I will go, let's go Egon Spengler. And you can see that Egon's also got a deck here. So my player's been selected and my deck has been selected.
once those
four attributes the sound is occasionally bad. Okay.
let me try
some things. Let me try changing my audio input. Hang on one moment. Can I do that on the fly?
perhaps I can.
Mixer, turn down the mic.
Oh, silly. How is that? Is that
A little bit better? Hopefully that's better. I'll keep going. I still have to figure out my setup here, so I'll listen back when I've got a chance and see if I can tune this a little bit better.
Okay, a bit quiet.
Okay. I can pump up the audio. How's that?
Quiet and listen. Let's try this. Is that better?
I've switched it over to my AirPod. I don't think it was like explicitly on my AirPod. Better? Okay.
Let's go with that for now.
I'd like to get proper mics and everything at some point, but we don't have that yet. Okie doke. So we've selected all of our users. Bit of reverb. Okay. I can try one more thing. I can try a different device. I'll try the camera itself. Oh, great, right there, he said. Okay.
There we go. Okay. Hopefully
that's right. That's right. Cool. Thanks, John. Okay, so I've got my players all selected. So I've got variables capturing my player one, my player one deck, my player two, and my player two deck. The next thing I want to do is I want to create game. Now that's going to trigger a data resource that's going to go and create effectively the game instance object. So it's going to create the game object instance, and then the flows are going to kick in, and the flows are going to start creating all of the stuff that I need in order to create the record. So what I might do is I might just jump into Studio and I'll talk through some of those things. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is the game instance from memory. This is where it sits. So I'll crack open the game instance table. Actually, it's probably the matchmaking queue is what's going to be created first. Let me probably open that guy up. So I'll open the list there of matchmaking queue objects. I will also open the list of game instance objects. And there's a whole bunch of children to these as well. So I'll talk you through what happens here. So I'm going to hit create game, and it's going to go off and create a record, a matchmaking queue record. So there we go. There's our matchmaking queue record. Some flows are running. And once the flows have finished instantiating the game, I get a game instance. So all of these things are happening in the background via flows. So let's have a look at our matchmaking queue. So we now have in our matchmaking queue, we'll refresh that. There should be something that's just been created just now. There we go. So Chuck versus Egon has been created as a game instance. If I drill into that, that's as a game instance. Matchmaking queue game instance. Yeah. Okay. Cool. If I drill into that, it's going to show me the game instance that was created. So it was. It's got Chuck as the current user. It's got the matchmaking instance that created it. It's got a short description. It's got some other attributes that will tell me what state the game is in. It tells me who player one and player two are. It'll tell me what turns we're in, current turn or number of turns, and it'll tell me what locations have been pre-populated. So this is an important thing as well. So in my flow, the very first thing I do once a matchmaking queue has got both players in it, so if I crack open this matchmaking queue record here, player one, player two, the session has been created for both of them, the deck has been associated with them, so they're related to decks now, so we can pull in the cards. We've got the game instance that just got created, we've got the status, so it was initially pending second player, and then when it went to once the second player had joined, it went into a started state, which triggered all the flows that created all of the sessions and instances and what have you. It's got a short description. So that's my kind of matchmaking system. It's all driven off flows based on flow states, and the flow states are all driven from UI Builder. There's no scripts or anything running all of this. It's all flow designer stuff. And then once it's got the game instance, then the game instance starts to populate itself. So we populate locations, so we will associate these with literally a game location instance object that will capture the card that's been associated. So in this case, we put Aspen on location 1 randomly, the Spaceship HQ on location 3, and the Employee Center on location 2. From a gameplay perspective, you won't see these until they get exposed. So the locations don't become active until they get exposed by the gameplay engine. So what does that mean? If I go back to my little debug menu, so this is sort of like behind the scenes what's happening in order to trigger the things that need to happen. I can launch in a couple of different UIs. So I've got game debug mode, which is where I can see everything exposed and I'm not like seeing player one versus player two or anything like that. I'm seeing both players, everything exposed all at once. So I might just see if I can center click on that. No, I can't. So I'll give it a left click. And that will open up. This is basically the UI that I built in order to make sure that the game logic is working. What it's doing is it's taking the sysid of the game instance, and it's using that to populate all of the objects, the data resources, and everything that fill out the UI. So I guess, as you can see, this is a pretty hideous interface. So it needs a lot of work. This is some debug stuff up here. I can see selected cards and current turns and game instance states and what have you. I've got some player details, so I can see my player one here. It's got a hand that consists of a repeater, and that repeater is showing the 3 cards that are currently assigned to player one's hand. I can see how much energy player one currently has to spend on cards. I can see all the little empty location slots. I can see the location card for 1 has been exposed. I can't see 2 and 3 yet, but I can see Aspen like we saw in the game instance. There's the location slots for player 2. There's Egon there with his current energy. He's got 3 cards and 1 of them is broken. And my debug menu lets me open up those sessions as well. So like let's have a look at Egon and see if we can find out why his image is broken. So I'm going to open Egon's player session, and hopefully the debug menu is still working. And it will take me to the underlying data. So there we go, Egon Spangler, he's got his current energy, which is updated by flows again. Current turn number 1, yada, yada, yada. There's a few things here that aren't implemented yet, like I don't do cards drawn or anything like that. But you can sort of see also here are his cards, right? So we've got 3 that are in hand. We've got JellyScript, we've got Maker McKee, and we've got literally an empty one here, which is a problem. That's a bug. He shouldn't have an empty card in his hand. Let's have a look at the record and see if it's a broken reference. Or if it's literally closed. Yeah, it's literally empty. So he's literally got an empty card there. An empty card reference. We can artificially fix that. I can specify one. You probably can't see my little menu that I've opened up. You can't, but like let's say I specify another card and save it. Let's see what that does to the interface here.
If I refresh, there now the card appears. Okay, so there's some problem
With how that cards were dealt. There's a problem in the flow there. He got dealt an empty card, which is not normal.
But the slot was
there, so you could see that it was empty. Okay, so now we've got our two players. The next thing I can show you, I guess, is the click interfaces. So I have, it might be worth opening up Flow Designer here so you can have a look at, UI Builder, so you can see how it's all been structured. Might close.
I'll close the debug menu
because we don't need to look at that anymore. Actually, no, what I might do is I might open P1 game and P2 game.
So you can see like the actual player version
of this. Okay, so I'll just compare these, right? So in this case, we've got player, I think this is player one. I can't tell. One of these players. In fact, it's Egon, so this is Egon's play space. So you can see all of his stuff. You can see all of the same sort of elements that we're used to seeing. There's a little bit of debug information up the top, but you'll notice that it doesn't have any of Chuck's cards because we don't want to show the hand, Chuck's hand to Egon, because then he could cheat. So eventually we'll probably have to kill the debug screen or make it invisible to players and only visible to admins or something like that. So that's a thing that will probably need to happen at some point. You can see his Chuck's version, so you see the players are inverted, and all I'm doing there is I'm controlling the sysid of the player. So I've got, that's I think the game instance, and that's the player. So if we switch across, game instance is the same, player is different, and all that does is it just rewires. It's exactly the same UI, exactly the same UI builder page. It just changes which data resources are called for what. And then obviously we've got our big debug one that shows exactly what's happening in the back end. I'm going to show you UI Builder. So here's UI Builder. I can open an SN app. And I want to go to probably the player view, debug play space. Debug play space, yep. And it's player view. So play space 1 and play space 2 are probably deprecated. I'm not using those anymore. Default is probably the oh no, debug is the debug that I'm opening. I'm going to go into player view. Cool. Maybe we'll substitute the actual game instances that we're using. So I'll use my substitutions. Yuck. Okay. I want the game instance to be that. Let's say player. I'll make that debug. Oh, there we go. So page is being dictated by that. So we apply that. Not quite, but anyway, this is effectively a player view. I think we're okay here. Okay, so these guys down here, the cards, everything that's a card is basically a card repeater. You can see player card repeater listed there, and what that means is it can have an on-click event. So we're getting all of our image sources from repeaters and yada yada yada. But every time you click, it will click on the card is what I want probably. Every time you click on the card, we do a bunch of things. So we update the client state, one of the client state parameters. And the one that we're specifically updating is selected card. So that sort of goes into memory. We store who the selected card is. Every modal click is a new selected card so that we know what the modal should be opening. So we're going, okay, we're clicking on Aspen, we're clicking on Iron Chuck, whatever card we're clicking on, the card is putting that sysid of the card that was clicked, the card instance that was clicked, into the UIB state parameter or variable so that the UIB knows what card is in focus right now when it starts talking to the modal. So that's kind of the first thing that we do. We are also opening the modal dialog. So we're going, all right, let's open the view and play card modal. So we have a bunch of different modals up here. Let's see if I can shrink them all down. We have a view and play card modal, which is opening up here with no details because we haven't set the parameter yet. We've got a view location modal, which is more or less the same. We've got a wait modal, which is just in place to wait while we do its thing. And we have a winner modal that says whether somebody's won or not. And again, that's all driven from the database. They're all effectively data resources or record watchers. When a record watcher is recognizes a change on the database, it will interact with the UIB instance to make things change. So all my modals are up here, and they're all driven off either data resources or those state variables, the state parameters that I'm changing. Okay, so we'll get rid of the modals. We don't care about modals. We'll go back into the game. We'll go back down to our card. So we client state parameter. We're opening the view and play card modal, and then we are updating the selected card unplayable parameter to say what is this one? I can't remember. This is to say whether or not there's enough energy to play a card or something. I had to do some funny stuff to make it so that you can only play cards that you have enough energy to play. And again, it's all no code. There's no scripts or anything. It's all based on database lookups and record watches. So let's see what that looks like in real life. So we'll go back to one of our player screens. This guy here. So I think we'll play as Chuck. So Chuck is going to start looking at some cards. So I've clicked on the Mega Power card, and what that has done is it's put the sysid of the Mega Power card up into the state parameter. So it knows that Chuck is trying to look at the Mega Power card because it passed that sysid up into the state parameter, and then it opened the modal. And the modal knows that it should be doing a data lookup on the state parameter and retrieving the data related to that card. So the modal opens up, it's retrieved all the data from the Mega Power card instance, and then it's gone, okay, I'm going to put all of those objects into the modal. So I'm going to set the title, I'm going to set the cost, power, the image, and the ability. It's also not given me any buttons to click because I have 1 energy, and this card costs 3 to play. So right now, because I don't have 3 energy, I can't play it. I don't get any additional buttons to be able to drive anything. So we'll jump back into the interface to see how that's been built, and we'll go into the player modal. Okay, so I have my play buttons 1, 2, and 3, right? So I played at location 1, location 2, or location 3. They're all currently hidden because the selected card is unplayable. That was that system that variable that we set before, the UIB variable. So this card is unplayable. I haven't got enough power to play this card. If I had enough power to play a card, let's jump back into the interface and see if we've got any. That's a 2. Close. That's a 1. Okay, so we know that Egon's second card, jumping back here, making a key, is cost 1. Current energy is 1. This guy is playable. So based on the stuff that's happening in the database, the playable flag being set, this one's playable. And we unhide these buttons. So we can play to location 1, location 2, location 3. Cool. Let's have a look at what's happening in the background with those buttons. So in this case, it's unhidden, so we can't see that here, but because we're in the interface, but we can see it's got a label, play to location 1, yada, yada, yada. It's in a little icon. And then we've got events. So the first thing that we do is we close the modal because we've initiated the playing activity. So we close the modal on click of that button. We update the client state parameter to null out the selected card. So we no longer care about that selected card. We clear the memory so that the next selected card can fill its place again. And then we execute a data resource to create the game event. And these are quite cool, right? So a data resource is like a data resource for updating things, like a create game event or create whatever. It's just kind of an empty shell, and then you apply whatever encoded query you want to whatever table you want. So in this case, I'm setting the table to game event, so I've hard set that in my event resource or whatever they're called, the event mapping here. And then I've literally just got a encoded query, and I start to fill out the encoded query. So I retrieve my reference to the selected card from the state parameter because we knew what sysid we were doing, so we know the card instance. We are setting an operation. We're saying this is a play operation. We're setting the location, which we got from the button itself, because well, we hard set from this button. We've gone, okay, we're going to location 1, 2, 3, and it's locked in from that button. And we're setting this event to pending. So we're saying, right, we are starting to play a card. It's a play operation, and we're going into pending so that all the logic can then kick in from Flow Designer. And we're also telling it what turn we were playing it on. So we get that from the current game instance because the game knows what turn we're in. And literally, it applies that encoded query to the record. So let's see what that does. Let's go into, where was he? Egon. Make him a key, and let's apply this, let's play this to location 1. And the next thing we do is we bring up the waiting dialog box. We can't click away from that, we can't close it, it's doing some thinking. So if I go back to my thing, we've updated the client state, and then we've opened the wait modal, and that's what we saw. We saw that character come up and tell us that we were waiting. And the reason it was waiting is because this data resource was currently had fired off, and we were waiting for the outcome of that to work its way through the system, all the flows to run to move that card from there to there and run all the logic that it needs to run. If we go up to the wait modal, nothing our modal set here, we've got the wait modal here, and he's just basically empty. Like he's got some design, he's got like no buttons. You can see how he's triggered, which is really cool. So you can see, I don't think I've ever seen this before. Maybe this is a new feature, but you can see what events are causing this modal to do things, and you can see what data resources are causing this thing to do things. So we can see our card watches, our game instance watches, our game over watches, all of these things potentially impacting on this guy. End turn button, all of that stuff. They will dismiss or add this guy. So that's kind of cool. And then he has like no events. He's kind of just a dumb modal that pops up to hold, wait things on the screen. One thing I discovered that is I'm looking forward to maybe doing something with is that I think these images can be animated GIFs as well. I think it would be cool to have an animated GIF for my wait sequence. So that's a down the track kind of thing. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know how much more time I'll give to this game. But yeah, so there's my wait modal. And let's see what had actually happened under the hood. So we are interested in our game events. So from our view and play modal, I'll just sort of refresh your memory on this. So we have our play button. It's open, close the modal, set the client parameter, and then it's triggered a game event. Request on flow game event, and you remember it said play, pending, card, location. All of those things were specified. So when we look at an actual game event, we show the list. You can see here. Let's throw. This is SN utils, and we'll add updated, created, and updated by. Okay, so you can see here's my make a key play game event. Crack that guy open. So remember it went in with pending. The operation was play. We've got some other operations there that are potentially things that can happen during the gameplay of the game. We've got the card reference, which is a reference to the card instance that Egon has. So it's not the original database card, it's the instance of the card that Egon has. And it said what slot it's going to take. That would have been figured out by the flow. It would have gone, what's the next available slot? It's 1. I'm going to put it in 1. and it said what location it's actually gone into. And again, this is the location instance that stores Aspen. Shows us what turn it was played on. It doesn't tell us player session, but it doesn't need to because the card reference contains Egon as a player session. So there's lots of cross references to all the different objects in the game. So that's the event has happened. We triggered a flow on this when it was inserted that said, okay, well, I'm going to modify this card instance and I'm going to put it in a particular location. So it's gone into the card reference, it's set the location, and set the status. So originally the card was in hand, it was in Egon's hand. Now that it's been played and the flow has run, it has set the location to Aspen, and it set the status to played to location. You can see also destroyed, discarded, in deck, a bunch of different attributes of that card. So that's effectively what's happened. I won't show you the flow right now, but the flow has done all of those things to that card record based on that event. Cool. So there we go. We've played that one. Can we play any more? That seems to be a bug. She shouldn't be able to play that. Maybe we'll go back into... Maybe that's because Egon's session has now refreshed, but the debug hasn't. So I'll try clicking on Mega... No, that's a bug. Interesting. I wonder if that's because I artificially set Mega Power. Yes, it is. It's because I artificially set that card. Remember when we fixed it before? I set Mega Power as the card, but I didn't set any of the current values, like I didn't set current power or anything like that, which the system is supposed to have done. So the reason Mega Power is playable is because she's got like null current power and what have you. We could fix that. We could fix that in the game instance. And the players under Egon. Open that. We can find Mega Power and we can go, aha, current power should be the same as the original originating record. So Mega Power has a power of 0 and a cost of 3. So let's go cost of 3, power of 0, in hand, current location. Everything else seems to be okay. Hand order is 3, yeah, because the object is there. Cool. So let's save that. So it fixes it. Might have to refresh. Still no good. Anyway, yeah, so theoretically I shouldn't be able to play that, but it looks like I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the turn now. And that will end the turn only for Egon. So it goes into a wait state, and it will stay in this wait state for kind of ever until Chuck has finished his job. So I've set the Egon player to I'm done. Why did that come up? Don't know why that came up. Okay, so I've set the Egon player to done. I'm going to go over to Chuck now. So here's Chuck. So Chuck has 1 energy. See, there's Mega Power working correctly. Cost 3 power. Okay, cost and power. So he can't play Mega Power. He can't play Captain CJ. He can't play Iron Chuck. He can't play anything because everything is more than 1 energy. So he's just going to end his turn right away. So off the event goes to say I've ended my turn. Thinks and thinks and thinks. I'm just going to add some to-dos here. So we have player 1 ends the turn. So we have a problem there because when player 1 ended the turn, the modal disappeared before player 2 had finished. Probably want to have which is waiting for player. Maybe we'll do that today. We'll just put a modal in to wait for player. So Chuck and Egon. If I refresh that. Okay, something's screwy here. So we haven't gone through to player two to current turn two. So we should have updated turn two, and all of the energy stuff should have kicked off. So something is screwy here. I'm gonna try.
I'll just try ending turn again. Try ending turn on this side as well. Now it's going to the current turn too. Let's refresh both of them. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's dig into that.
That's probably a thing that's worth debugging. Why do the turn end capabilities not kick off at the right time? So let's see if we can have a look at our events. So we go into Studio, we'll close all of this stuff. We're in the game events. Refresh that.
Okay. So here we have
our first end turn event. So that would have been initiated by. We can probably see the player. Oops. They initiated it. Yeah. So you can see here's Egon ending the turn, and there's Chuck ending the turn, and then there's Chuck, and then there's Egon again. So these two worked. This pair of end turn events worked. This pair didn't. We can't see the flow. I think that's maybe because they're not tasks.
I'm not 100%. It's probably a better
Way to view flows that have executed, flow execution contexts against this record. But never mind, we'll go into Flow Designer and see if we can figure it out. So I'm going to use my SNU tools. I'm going to go to FD because I want Flow Designer. I'm going to hit Enter. Off it goes to Flow Designer.
I want to see why those
first two
event flows actually did.
These are now available on
Workforce Studio. Cool. Operations. Yep. Operations, is that executions now? Flows.
all executions.
Today's executions. Okay, cool.
All right, so you can see there's a whole bunch of logic happening here, right? So if we go, we want three. We want to find this guy, which was. Okay, so these were 4 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago.
So 5 minutes ago. On session energy change.
Okay, card play event. So here's our first card play event triggered. So let's show all of those. We have one that was 12 minutes ago. I don't remember that one, but these are the ones we're interested in. So here's our first one from Egon, our second one from Chuck, another one from Egon, and another one from Chuck. And you can see this guy executed much longer, so he was the one that actually closed the game out, closed the turn out. Whereas these guys were just like, I've kind of done some stuff. So let's drill into this one. No. Okay. All right. We want our reporting levels to be useful to us. So.
/P
for properties, which is an SN utils feature. Now I'm throwing the property name straight in there, and it should take me directly to the list. And I want to set the flow. This is flow reporting level, so I can debug my flow basically. So I'm going to set this guy to full.
I'm going to edit it. Record. High-risk file.
Update that guy. Wow. That's at least
something.
It's warning me about customizations causing skip records. That's kind of fun.
Okay. All right. So
look, I'm just going to abandon this game and I'm going to start another one just because I want to see all of this stuff happen again. So we can use the same, we've still got our debug menu open, we've still got all of the players selected. It's got the game instance and the matchmaking queue, but if I wanted to create a new game,
there's a new matchmaking
queue,
thinks. Fills all the cards out.
and now we've got a new game instance and we can launch that guy, P1
and P2. So now we've got a brand new game,
brand new cards have been dealt. Again, Egon's got a broken card, which is really interesting.
But Chuck does
not have a broken card. And Chuck has got something he can play. So I'm going to just play one. I'm going to play to location 2 this time. Again, the event trigger is running. It's moving the card. Like, it does all that pretty fast. You saw that, right? It ran a whole flow that said, okay, an event's dropped. I'm now going to modify the original card. I'm going to set the value, yada, yada, yada. It also reduces the energy down. So the one energy that costs, it's taken that off his thing. So a whole bunch of stuff has happened in the background there. Which we could see if we hadn't closed Flow Designer. So let's go to Flow Designer again. Flow Designer. There we go. We have operations. Let's look at today's executions.
flows and
Playbooks. That's annoying.
Okay, so
play card event triggered. So I've put the play card thing. On card create check session energy to set playable. Okay, so all of this stuff is happening to set whether the card is playable, and it's done that for the 3 cards that were in my hand. I've set the play. I've played the card, so here's my play card event triggered.
Can I see the executions now? Yes, I can.
Game event created. There's my game event pending.
Table record yada yada. If the action is played, then I want to
look up the record that I'm playing, the location slot that I'm playing it to. I want to look up the player session to get some stuff.
If I'm successful, then
I want to subtract the integer from the other integer. Okay, so I want to talk about this because this is funny to me anyway. Because I have like numbers and I need to add and subtract things from those numbers. Like, so in this case, I want to get the energy, the cost of the card that I've just played and the energy that the player has for this turn. And I want to subtract the cost from their current energy, right? So in Flow, and I don't know if this has changed recently, but certainly a year ago in Flow, if I wanted to subtract the number from another number, I could subtract like an arbitrary number, like 1, like or 2 or 3, from using Flow. What are they called? Flow functions. Like the Flow functions have a maths function, and I could go, I'm going to subtract 1, or I'm going to subtract 2, and it's always hard coded in the function. But I don't think, back then there wasn't, there may not still be, there was no way to arbitrarily go, okay, subtract variable integer from other number. So there's no way to arbitrarily go, I want this number and I want you to subtract that from that. So in order to get around that, and in order to keep my low code, no code thing, I created a subflow that takes those 2 numbers as an input, so the number to subtract and the number that you're subtracting from, takes them as inputs into a subflow, and then the subflow will iterate through taking 1 off every time until it hits the number of iterations that it's supposed to have done in order to perform that subtractor or add activity. So I kept my no code. I didn't have to write any maths code or inline maths code or anything to do variables or create an action or anything like that. But the subflow is kind of stupid. I'll just crack it open here so you can see. Like, I literally go integer to subtract original integer, and I have an output which is the number, the output of the number, and then I go, okay, so for each, do the following: subtract 1 every time, for the number that I'm subtracting. So my original integer to subtract, and I'm taking 1 off each time, and I'm setting the flow variable to reduce that turnstile number each time. It's stupid, but it got me no code, right? Like almost no code. So hopefully that's a thing that like gets fixed, that you can do subtraction of arbitrary numbers from one another. But That's the thing I had to do. Okay, so sorry about the going off track there a little bit. Subtract integer from other integers, so we've done that, and then we update the played slot with the related record. So we're going, okay, we're going to set for that location, we're going to set the card that we just played. We're going to update the card instance so that it knows what location it was played to. We're going to update the player session energy, so we go, you have now taken away one energy from your existing energy based on that subtraction subflow that we did before, and then we update the game event to say player one is completed.
Oh, my voice is still wobbly. That's not
Right.
That's annoying. What?
I'm just going to switch over to the camera.
Is that better?
Theoretically, you should be able to hear my audio coming from the camera mic
instead of my headset.
I can probably take that out now. Hopefully that's working. Hopefully, yeah. I'm only going to go for another like 10 minutes or so, but yeah, hopefully that's all working. So yeah, so this is the activity that happens after a card has been played. And it goes and it updates all the records. If it was... okay, so I think this is probably where we're starting to run into some problems. So if the action is end turn, if player 2 wait 2 seconds, update record, look up records, update records. Okay, so I had to do something to stop race conditions between the players both ending the sessions at the same time. Okay, good. I'm glad my audio seems to be sorted out. It might have been the fact that I had 2 headphones, like one down there and one in my ear, so that might have caused the problem. Okay, so I feel like this is probably where we were starting to see the problem. So I think this was just a stopgap. I was trying to solve a problem that happened when I was doing things from the same interface, I think. So this is probably where my bug lives. Okay, so all right, so let's just jump out of this. We'll keep executions open. And we want to go back to the player instance. We will close, I'll keep UIB open too, and I'll keep the debug thing. I'll close the landing page and I'll close developers. Okay, cool. All right, so here we've got Chuck has played his card. He's got no energy left, he can't play anything else. We've got Egon, who... he actually can probably play Make him a key, so let's do that. We'll play him to location 3. It thinks, so it would have gone through and done the operations. If we refresh the operations here, we should see the on session change, check player card playability, card play event triggered, da 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 da. Okay, so something that's worth noting here is like when the card gets played, one of the things that we also do in the background is when the session energy has changed, we go through all of the cards in the hand and go, can I be played or not? That's the flag that says whether it's playable in this round or not. So we're setting a flag to say, okay, the energy, the cost of this card is less than or more than the energy that's available, so it's unplayable. Or if the cost of the card is less than the energy available to the player, it's playable. So we do that for the whole hand every time, and that's what drives the visibility of the playable buttons. I think we mentioned that earlier in the stream as well. So it's doing that in the background as well. We are setting the player session short description. That's interesting. That probably shouldn't happen. That's a start activity. That shouldn't be happening during gameplay. Is occurring during gameplay and shouldn't. We can probably fix that one straight away even. We can probably just go into this flow. Open the original flow and fix the trigger there, because that we probably don't want that. Once. That only ever has to happen once. There we go. Activate. Cool. So I'm going to say that was probably fixed. Alrighty. So, back to our contexts, execution details, execution contexts, refresh. There's a subtract integer from one integer, so my arbitrary, to avoid code, I did a subflow to subtract things. And then I've got a location slot in use. What's that one doing? Let's open it. Slot, card instance changes. If related card is anything, then set the location record to slot visible. Okay, cool. So okay, so that's basically saying so when we see in fact I'll go into the interface. When we see all these slots, they're basically set to hidden. Visible is false. So when a card is related to the reference field in that slot, then it will make that boolean set to true. So card is visible true, and that will allow the UIB element to go, aha, it's visible. I'm going to set the visibility on all the UI elements that are in it. So that's how we're showing and hiding the cards. There's a lot going on in Flow. Flow does all the heavy lifting in this game. Okie doke. So what do we got? We've got so we've set the location in use. All right. We want to see if we have that same problem where if one player ends the turn and then the other player doesn't end the turn, why does it, and then the other player ends the turn later, why doesn't it actually trigger the end turn? So I'm going to hit end turn. It's going to go into thinking mode. And it's probably going to wait those 2 seconds. There's a flow execution happening right now, and we want to see what that flow execution has actually done. In theory, this should just wait forever, but it didn't before when we tested, so we want to see why, if we can find out why that might have happened. Okay. Alright. Let's throw this one over here, so I'm not sure if you can still see that. No, you can't. Good. Alright, so I've got a window. I've got the thinking screen over here, and it hasn't gone away, so that's good. That's what I wanted it to do before. So what's happened? So a card play trigger event was triggered. Set player session sort description again was triggered, which we don't want. And then on session energy change. Okay, let's crack this guy open. Oops. Gameplay event. State pending. Let's have a look at that gameplay event. This is the record that was created. It's an end turn operation, which is what we want, and it's for Egon, which is what we want. So it's not a play action, so all of this stuff is irrelevant. If it's an end turn action, if player 2 wait 2 seconds, condition if player is player, yeah, if player is player, session is session, timer completed, then update record, turn status ended. Check whether there are unended turns. I feel like this is clunky. I feel like the reason maybe it screwed up is because it was player 1 did the action first, not player 2. So maybe the test is check if player 1 causes this state to happen. Look up records, we're looking up the sessions, check whether there are unended turns, and there aren't. Or there's one unended turn, which is the Chuck Tomasi turn. So Chuck Tomasi's session is still unended. And if that's the case, then I end my current player's turn. I end Egon's turn. And then update the record. So if there are no sessions left, then end the turn. Okay, cool. All right, so this is actually working the way I want it to. So if I bring back Egon's one, so there's Egon, and I go over to Chuck's turn, and I end Chuck's turn, then we should see, so again we've got the thinking box. This one should disappear because we have effectively, just make sure it's, and in fact both of them should discard, like the modal should go away. Both are thinking, both are thinking. Interesting. Let's go to executions and see what's happening. So we have our play card event. There we go. Game event was end turn for Chuck. So that's Chuck's end turn. Just double check it hasn't gone away yet. So we've ended Chuck's turn. We've updated the record to say it's in progress. Fine. It's not a play action, so we can ignore all of that. If it's an end turn action, which it is, it's not player 2 because Chuck is player 1, not player 2, which is good. So we don't wait. We don't do that record update, whatever that was supposed to be. Interesting. Or we don't do it so it's not showing an execution, so that's fine. We look up whether there are other unended turns. And we find one. We find Chuck's record. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think this is wrong, right? So check whether there are unended turns. It should be looking for other unended turns. It should be a record other than my own. So I don't actually want to find my own session. I want to find somebody else's session. I think that's an error, so I'm going to grab that one. Check whether there are unended turns, and I'm going to see if I can correct that. So check if there are unended turns, which was not in the play action, it was in the end turn action. Check whether there are unended turns, there he is. Okay. Game instance is this, turn status is not ended, and what do I want? I want the session. This is the session. SysID is not event record, player session, SysID. Okay, so that unended turns, because my turn is the one that I'm ending, it will only look for other people's unended turns. It won't find itself and be inconsistent with itself. We don't care about our turn because our turn is the one ending. We care about and if there are other unended turns from other people. So theoretically, that should resolve some of that problem. Let's start with that. Let's activate that guy. And let's abandon this game as well. We'll start a new session, and we'll see if we can do player 2 ends their turn, then player 1 ends their turn. We'll leave the 2-second gap to see what that's trying to do, because I can't remember. And we'll see if that gets our turn state end. Welcome, Astrid. A stream in our time zone. I chose this time zone because it's not a work day, and it sort of works for the US. So that's most appropriate for me. And I also don't have to take my kid to tennis, so it works. It works okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to rerun the game again. So we've for those of you who haven't seen this bit, this is my debug menu. It's great, like very high quality UI. I've effectively selected a user. So here's one of my players. They're selected because they have the player role. And there's two different, so I'm selecting user 1 and user 2. So I've selected in this case Chuck Tomasi. So that's Chuck Tomasi's user SysID. and I've selected Popeye, I think, no, Egon Spengler, and that's Egon Spengler's sysid. The next thing I've done is I've selected a deck from the deck list. I can create new decks as well. I can instantiate the deck builder, but I haven't done that in this session. Yeah, like the debug stream. Yeah, it's debug screen. It's quality, isn't it? So I've selected the decks, and now I get the ability to create a game. So this is the one I've created before. So I've match made and created the game instance, but I'm going to do a brand new one because I'm discarding that game because I want to retest my first turn again. So I'm going to create the game. It goes off and creates the matchmaking queue. Flow Designer kicks in and creates the game instance, shuffles all the cards, deals all the cards, sets all the instances, the locations up, sets up the entire game basically. So that matchmaking instance says I'm ready, and then the game instance goes, boom, here's your game instance. And then I have access to launch the player 1 view and the player 2 view. So I'm going to do them in order. So player 1, who was Chuck, and then player 2, who was Egon. And I'm going to swap them around because I want to do player 2 first. So here we go, brand new game, a new location has been dealt. Player 1 has 1 energy, which means they can't actually cast anything because we've got a 2, and a 2. So they're all too expensive for player 1 to play, unfortunately. So I'm going to just end the turn as Egon, and it's going to go into its wait state. And then I'm going to have a quick look at Chuck and see if Chuck can play anything. That's a 6, impossible. That's a 2, and that's a 5. So none of them are playable either. So no one's actually going to be able to play anything this turn. Let's go back to Egon. Egon's still thinking. Astrid says, I love it too. There aren't many examples we have in platform, but DPM has one. I think it's a great way for people to learn UIB events and data resources without worrying about how it looks. Yeah, like a debug screen, I think is what you're saying. Digital product, well, DPM, what's DPM? I know DPR. Is DPM digital product management? Yeah. But yeah, this is, I got very deep into events and modals and data lookups and data resources and record watches for this project. There's a lot of record watching because it's waiting for things to happen. Jace is also asking what DPM is. We all want to know, Astrid. Okay, cool. So I still have, so that's good. Egon's still thinking. I can have a look at Egon's execution and we'll just double check what it's done. So there's the play event. Digital portfolio management, new version of ServiceOps workspace, or a new part of ServiceOps workspace. I feel like I've possibly seen that one but haven't gone too deep on it. Alright, so we've got our game event, action is play, action is end turn, yep. So we've done the 2-second wait because it was player 2, because player 2 is player 2. And we wait for 2 seconds. I still can't remember why I do that. It possibly could go, but I don't want to touch it yet because I don't want to break everything. We are updating the session to say the turn has ended. We are looking up records looking for unended turns, and it correctly finds Chuck Tomasi's unended turn, so that's good. Updates the record and completes the event. Okay, but it finds that there are sessions still left, so it will not end the turn. Okie dokes. So back over to Chuck Tomasi's session. So I'm going to end Chuck's turn, and it's going to think straight away, and it killed them all. Oh, and it finished the turn. Okay, success. So you'll see there what happened. The modals disappeared on both of those screens. The turn incremented up by 1, so we have a current turn of 2. The energy has incremented by 1, so we now have a current energy of 2. And if the players had spent some of their energy, it would have been fully replenished. So if I had spent all my energy and I had 0 left, it would have replenished me back to 2 because you get energy per turn. For those of you who know Snap, Marvel Snap. And now it's given me back control, and Employee Center and Integration Hub are both exposed. We have Chuck and Egon are both able to play. Let's see if that works again. Let's do it in the other order. So we'll do Chuck first, and then Egon. So Chuck is going to play something. Let's see if he can play anything. Nah, it doesn't look good. Okay, that one's good. The Witch Doctor there has got a cost of 2. My good friend Goran has got a cost of 2. And I will play him to a location. Let's pick location 3. So I can play even though the location is not exposed yet. The boolean that controls whether or not it's visible or not was set when the flow went and set it and all that sort of stuff. All the flow stuff is happening in the background to set all of the database values. And then the record watcher is going, aha, I'm going to update everything that belongs to that record now that the record watcher is triggered, and that means that the view state, the visible state for the card is now tripped, and the changed location. It moved it from that hand to there. So two repeaters got updated there. So this repeater and this repeater all got updated. That one removed the card because it's no longer in the hand, and that one added it because it's now in a location. All good? All good. So that's Chuck playing his card. Then I'll go over to Egon, who's player 2, and he's still got that 2-second wait. I can't remember why I put the 2-second wait in. I remember I was desperate because I needed to get something working, but yeah, I don't know. Jelly script. Oh, this is my favourite card. I think it looks amazing. It's very cool. Cost 2, power 2. On reveal, destroy other cards here, yada yada yada. I don't think all of these are working, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to play him to location 3. So that's worked. One thing you'll notice, and I'm not sure if this actually works, I can't remember if this works or not. I feel like I've got it working. But you'll notice they're both in location 3, but I can't see Egon's cards yet because I haven't ended the turn. So he may or may not have played something there, but I won't know until I end the turn. So Jelly Script is in location 3 for Egon, and Witch Doctor is in location 3 for Chuck. So if I now go, I think it was Chuck first. No, I was going to do Egon first. So Egon ends his turn. He's happy with Jelly Script, and he goes into a thinking state. We'll give that a second just to see if the flow accidentally kills the modal, but I don't think it will. I think we're okay. Okay, I think we're good. So the flow has run, and it hasn't set the state that's going to clobber the modal, so that's good. Now we'll go to Chuck and we'll end his turn. Kablam, and everything's updating. So we've got the turn is set to 3. You can now see the other player's Jelly Script card. You can see the energy is incremented up again. You can see a new card has been dealt, and that is true of Egon's cards as well. He's got a new card, he's been incremented, and he's got a current turn. Cool. Alright, so it looks like turn end is working successfully. Now I'm going to do some things. I'm going to win another location. I'm going to try and see if I can just win with one character. Yeah, so yes, Asteroid and Technology, hello. That's Astrid, is it? Okay, cool. Or is it Jace? Someone. So yeah, record watches. I think record watches are pretty easy. I'll show you an example of one in a sec. I just want to win the game, and then I'll show you all of my record watches that I've got running on this thing, because I'm using them for arrays as well. So like literally, this guy here is an array. It's a lookup of many records, and it's a record watcher that's looking for a change that will force that refresh. That's Astrid. Cool. Okay, cool. So, right, so I'm gonna end this turn, and I'm just gonna end this turn. I'm not gonna play anything from Chuck's. I'm gonna make Chuck lose this game, and I'm gonna let Egon win this game. So theoretically, this one should process. Come on, there we go. Bang, 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 bang. Everything's changed. New state. Bang, 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 bang. Everything's changed. Right, if we end that turn, and then we end the turn again. They both go into waiting. Or do they? Yes, they do. Thinking. Up to 5. Now I'm going to do it the opposite way. I'm going to do Chuck first. So player 1 first, and then player 2. Yeah, so Astrid, I think the 2 second wait was to stop asynchronous things. So if the flows are in a race condition and they both find that like the game is not finished, or the turn is not finished, I think they will fail to proceed. So yeah, it's something like that. And I think it's still relevant. I think it's still necessary. From in terms of the game, because it's an asynchronous game anyway, no one will really notice if there's a 2 second wait. So I think it's okay. Like I don't have a huge problem with that. It's not like really real time. You could just say player 2 is always laggy over player 1, always. Like player 1's so good, player 2's not. All right, so I think we're sort of getting to the point where if I end this last turn, because there's usually 6 turns in a round, we should see a win screen. So it's probably doing calculations. We have a winner, Egon Spengler. So there you go. So Egon gets told that he's a winner, and Chuck gets told that Egon won. So we can win it. So it's effectively a playable game at this point. The only problem is that launching it is not quite great. And I've just so you know, I've done a portal page for self-registration. It's janky, but it's almost there. So it's almost at the point where I can have people self-register, self-create their own decks, and then self-join a game. That would be effectively the next step. But I wanted to show gameplay in this session, just so you could sort of see what's going on with the UI builder stuff. So I think maybe next time I do do one of these, I will do self-registration. And I think I'll see if I can get real people to self-register and start playing, so that I can prove that it's actually a playable game that people can join, rather than just me as admin playing the 2 users against each of them. So I think next time we'll make it properly playable to the public. Please don't break it. You'll probably be able to figure out, like, if you've watched the whole session, you'll probably be able to figure out how to cheat as well as a player. So we might try and lock down cheating as well. So turn off the debug mode, so that players can't see debug mode; they can only see their players. But yeah, it will be interesting. I don't know if you'll be able to find the sysids so you can look at the other players' play space. It will be interesting anyway. But I think just sort of to round things out, I'm going to sort of finish up very soon. Jace, you asked about record watches, so I'm just going to go into here and I'm going to talk about record watches because I have lots of them. So a record watcher, I think it's like a data resource. Yeah, it's a type of data resource. So there we go. So we have, what's a good one to look at? The player hand watcher. Let's do that one. So you can set whether it's, well, you can set that it's immediate, and you can set your the table that you're looking at. So in this case, I'm interested in game instance game card instances. Most of my watches are game card instances because I'm interested in what card has been moved where. And literally all you do is set the table and a condition. Player is, and I've used a reference or whatever, a variable to get that. So data, actually it's already a data lookup. So data lookup get player session, which is something I load as soon as the game starts. In fact, it's probably taken from the URL parameter. So I'm getting the player session from the URL. And then I'm passing that through to a lookup, an immediate lookup, which is getting the player session, the entire record. And then I'm passing that also down to this, record watcher. I probably could even just use the URL parameter. So like in here, you get to set page properties and client states and things. I probably could do something like props player session, and that would probably do the same thing. But effectively that means that anytime a record that matches that filter condition, so all of the cards in my hand, anytime they change, it'll automatically refresh that watcher. And I can see, can I see usage? Events. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm watching for changes to my hand, and then I will use the change in my hand to close the wait modal. So if I'm in a waiting state, like when I've played my card to a location, it goes into waiting, and all of the activities happen. Da 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 da. And the last thing that it does is it goes, all right, I'm going to update the hand or the card instance to say it's no longer in my hand. It's in the location, and that will cause the wait modal to close. But equally, it's also refreshed like all of the hand watcher values, which means that anything is using that data resource, I think that's right, will refresh. So things like I close down modals, and I go to my selected card. Oh, these are modals still, are they? No, they're not. Body selected card. Oh, okay. So that's all my preamble header stuff. Now you're going to see the madness of my my hierarchy here, which is insane. Level 1, location zone, player hand. There we go. Player hand. Okay, so I've got my player hand container. So the details are like the player name and everything. So that's this bit on the left. And the player hand is a repeater. And the repeater is based on the get player hand, this guy here, this data resource, which has results, and yada yada yada. So get player hand. Oh, this is refreshing immediately anyway. So that repeater is always going to be updated based on changes to the hand. That watcher that I'm using to dismiss the modal is just to dismiss the modal when any change happens to cards. It's not madness, just organized chaos. Yeah, pretty much. When I do sort of get into, I want to rebuild this for mobile as well, which is a thing that's probably not next session, but maybe the session after. There's supposed to be a reactive sort of interface in UI Builder now, or coming, or now, or something, which theoretically I should be able to make it sort of resize. It's not super great at the moment. Let's actually do a resize here. See, it doesn't quite work for mobile here. It's all messy, but theoretically there's a reactive thing. But I think one of my biggest problems is going to be that I have to find everything. Like everything is a repeater. So that's the L1 player repeater, L2 player repeater, location 1 player repeater, location 2 player repeater, location 3 player repeater. So everything is like replicated over and over and over again. I think I could possibly make these the same object as a sub, I think they're called subpages or something like that. I think I could make them subpages and have them pass parameters into the subpages, but I'm not sure. So there's a bit of like sort of more advanced UI Builder stuff that I could possibly do to make this easier. At the moment, if I'm talking about the location zone, for example, I literally have them all replicated. I had to replicate them by hand and relabel them by hand. Most of the time spent developing this app was relabeling all of the UI Builder items and making sure that they actually referred to the right data resources that they needed to. It would be much nicer if I could just go, here's the object, I'm not going to go and set all of the the arrays. I just want to point array 1 at that, array 2 at that, array 3 at that, and be done. There's probably better ways to make it more modular, but I feel like I'd have to rebuild it from the ground up, which may be beyond what I want to do with this project. But yeah, cool. So that's effectively where I am. I think I've run out of steam. I've gone a little bit over the time I wanted to spend on it. But yeah, Astra's talking about page collections. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to try and maybe do with that in the future. And it's not code review. It's about the fun of building it. Yes, but it's also about learning and like learning about collections and things like that. So so I may try and do some stuff here. One other thing I wanted to talk about just really quickly, now I'm sort of finished with the live dev, but I wanted to talk about some stuff that I'm seeing in ServiceNow. I've really been interested in the agentic stuff. Like the agentic stuff is kind of cool. I'm wondering, my sort of immediate thought, because this is where my head is with this game, is I'm wondering if I could currently all the cards have their own flows. Like every card has a flow, and I have to call the subflow through a dynamic flow. But I'm wondering if the agentic stuff would be good enough to be able to figure out from a description of what the card is trying to do, maybe a more descriptive version than what's written into the card, but whether it would be able to go, okay, I'm going to reason through what I need to do. If I give it tools to go and like make modifications to slots and scores and power and everything like that, could the agentic AI be good enough to be able to actually execute all of the logic of the game? That's something I would love to try and have a crack at. See if I can just make it no code, no flow. See if I can just have agentic stuff doing everything. I'm sure there needs to be code and flow in the skills and the actions and tools and everything. But that's a thought that occurred to me looking at the agentic AI stuff this week. So we'll see. Maybe this will have another life. Maybe there'll be an agentic version of SN app next year or something, or maybe this year, who knows. Anyway, thank you all for joining me. It was really good to have you. Video will be up later, and I'll book another one for probably next week, same time slot. Let me know if it suits you, if it doesn't suit you, and if the content is okay, and I will keep doing this. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. I will see you all next time.